So this is my setup when choosing to do my impressionist artwork with colored pencils rather than anything else. So just to kind of note, I have my full tray of colored pencils. I have my color version of my artwork. Now you could have a printout color, or you could also choose just to look at it on your computer. The main thing to have is the reference of the color areas. And then I have my sketch that I did, and then I actually made a copy because I want to keep this sketch to show future classes. And so I made a copy of it to actually do my full color on. So my first thing that I have to talk about is my color scheme. Again, my main colors of the original are blue and yellow. So if we, take a look at from the original to my color wheel, blue and yellow are part of a triad, and so they have a split relationship. So they're part of this trio of three, the primary colors. And so if I take that split of three, and I notice there are three colors in between them, I'm going to actually just do a shift and find another set of three that have three colors in between them. So in this case, I'm going to be choosing red, violet, and yellow, orange, because I like those tertiary colors for one thing, and they have a split relationship. There's three colors on a wheel of 12 in between those two colors. So those are the two that I'm going to be working with today. In color pencil, it's a little bit tricky to find those colors. Yellow, orange is usually pretty easy to find, so that's this one. Not too hard to find that one. And then also, but red violet is a little more tricky. Sometimes there is a red violet, or one that's like a little more purpley of a red, so like a maroon color almost. You could choose that if that works for you. But just because these are your main colors does not mean that the rest of the color wheel is excluded from you. So you're gonna probably need yellow, you're gonna need red, you're gonna need purple, you're gonna need pink, you're gonna need as many other colors as you need, and especially your darks and lights. You're gonna need black, and you're gonna need white, and so if you've got other colors too, that's wonderful. The way that color pencils work, and the way to create an impressionist style, is to create a series of levels. So I'm going to start my image by coloring in my basic colors where I think they belong, just as a flat. So I'm just going to lightly color the whole picture, either the yellow or the purple. So one or the two. I'm just going to color the whole picture. I'm not going to press hard, and I'm not going to try to leave marks. But as I'm coloring, I want to make sure that I'm looking at and paying attention to the direction of the marks. So this one, I am going to just make sure that I'm using short little pencil marks. And as I'm coloring in, I'm coloring lightly. I'm not trying to press hard. So this is my goal, is that I'm going to just color the whole picture in light pencil using my short impressionistic brush marks, even though it's a pencil. Okay, so just make sure you're kind of doing short, light lines that layer on top of each other. So that's the first step, is to do your whole picture level 1. Actually, what I'm noticing as I'm starting to do my color is that I'm noticing that my pencil lines are kind of getting in my way, and that they're going to be trapped underneath the color as I work if I don't sort of erase them as I go. So even though I redrew and I drew really lightly, I still need to go back in and sort of lightly erase my pencil lines so that you can still, if I zoom in really close here, you can still see that they're there, right? But they're not going to show up in my final project, which is good. I don't want my pencil lines getting in the way of the color telling me about the shapes. So I'm going to go in and add just my color pencil on top of where the pencil lines used to be. And I have to make sure I remember to erase first. Otherwise, I might end up with those pencil lines trapped underneath the color. That makes it much harder to kind of get rid of those at the end. So make sure you're kind of thinking about where those pencil lines are as you go. And you can either choose to kind of erase all at once, which might look like, going like this, excuse me, and taking your eraser and kind of just going along all your lines at once. Support your paper as you do this so that you don't cause it to wrinkle. kind of hold it down with your wrist as you go, or use your other hand to help hold it down, especially as you get to those paper edges. Or just pick specific area, like, oh, I'm about to color this circle, so I'm going to erase the circle and then I'm going to color it. And then I'm going to color this circle, so I'm going to erase this circle and then I'm going to color it. So you can choose if you want to erase all at once and just sort of leave the impressions there for yourself, or if you want to do it like I'm doing, just a little bit at a time. It's your choice and what makes more sense for you and what you're more comfortable with. But remember, your first step is sort of just lay out all your colors as a base coat. Everything needs a little bit of color. We shouldn't see much of the original white of the paper left. If you're going to have white, you know, you can either add it back in with a white color pencil or think about leaving those spaces. It is a little harder with color pencil to create white. So if there are some white spaces, think about leaving those spaces, but don't have outlines at the edge of them. I don't know if that makes sense. So leave them by not coloring them, but don't have outlines. Okay, I'm going to color the rest of my whole picture, and then we'll come back. So this is where I'm at with a base coat of lightly coloring, trying to keep in mind directions, but I'm not, or hadn't been too worried so far yet about specifically filling it in well. This is just sort of the base undercoat to kind of get rid of all of the white. Now my job is to take my colors and to kind of go in and start fleshing out the information, paying attention to brush strokes, direction, and other types of information. So like, for instance, in my tree here, I just sort of have a base coat of the black. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start really fleshing out the wiggliness or the organicness of this tree, cypress tree, that Van Gogh has as sort of his focal point or his point of interest. So I'm not going to make it all 100% black because that is not accurate. If we look over at this one, if I kind of zoom in, you'll see there is some variation in here. But also because even if I did that, it would be really boring to look at. So I want to, even within something that is supposed to be mostly black or mostly big, still have those short brush strokes that create the variation that is so iconic of Impressionist style. So, you know, back and forth, pay attention to kind of which direction they should go, and start filling in and really make it quite lovely. And that's part of what makes the style work so well, is that it kind of gives the idea of what you're seeing, but also still lets you be free to notice and to kind of create these super organic shapes. And as you build up this information, that's where this kind of level of interest comes in. So you just kind of keep going and you fill the whole space. Make sure you get all the way to the edge of your paper. Don't sort of hover right around here. You know, if you end up drawing on your table, if you're worried about that, put a paper down, you know, no big deal. And then notice the fact that like most of the colors are not by themselves. Like even though this is mostly blue, there's also other colors. So there's like some yellow in here. There's some black. There's lighter shades and darker shades of the same blue. We're not just working with a single tone. So I actually need to break out my purple color, and I need to break out my yellow, or my yellow-orange in this case, because that's really what I've been working with, and start building up or building in some of these areas of variation, of these color strokes or these marks that are different or more strong, and really play with this idea. Let things overlap. Don't worry about, you know, having them necessarily be 100% separate from each other. Bring in some of those shadows, short little lines, all those types of things. That's really where your interest is going to really start to come in and start to flesh out. This type of art is all about layering. So if you were to have stopped, right here at this level where it's just sort of all base color and we're not starting to get any of the layering effects, that would be sort of your indication that you're doing kind of a level 2 work. You're not really starting to build up. You're not really showing that you understand that Impressionism is all about the short brush strokes and the variations of color and the building up of that information. If you continue to work and you keep adding on and you really get some of those good variations, that's your level 3. If the whole thing is really nice, then that's your level 4. And if it's all been done and you've sort of really been paying attention to how close and careful this is, that's your level 5. So I'm going to keep working here and I'll show you a clip of this when we're all done. All right, here's my shot of my completed color pencil version of our Impressionist artwork. This one took me about an hour and a half, couple hours. So for you guys, do expect to spend, 70 minutes or more completing this artwork. Don't rush it. It will show if you kind of rush your time. Spread it over a couple of days. Don't try to do it all at once.